Hello, this is Joe from Nerd in Korea, and we're finishing up our budget creatures with counterspells, this time talking about repeatable effects on creatures. I think these are generally what people are looking for more, even though I think there may be, better. Repeatable is definitely undervalued, but it's usually more costly because it's not costing a card. Again, a card is a cost, right? It is a resource. The number of cards in your hand or the number of cards in your deck, that is a resource, a finite resource. I think people often don't consider that. But anywho, so once again, creatures can have just about any power or any ability on them. And here are the 5 the most useful creatures that have counterspells that are repeatable. Okay, so the last time we did like the SAC and ETB ones. Now we're talking about repeatable effects. Creatures' abilities are activated in different ways. We are looking at the ones that reuse their counterspell abilities. Yeah, again, these are usually more expensive in some way, like mana-wise or some other kind of cost is usually tacked onto it because it is so good, right? Especially if you're discarding a card to cast counterspell, I think a lot of people say, oh, that's not good because I have to discard. Yeah, if you cast the spell counterspell, that is a card and it goes into your graveyard. Same, right? That's the same thing. Discarding a card or casting a card that goes straight into your graveyard, it's a card in your graveyard. What's the difference? Anyway, okay. So number 5. Alright, Vodalian Mage, yeah. I actually got this card back in like 1995 or 96, so I'm excited to have it on the list. Also, it has the old tap symbol. The tap symbol used to be just like a T on its side, or kind of a, not on its side, but yeah, kind of a slanted T. And it has the old T. I think that's pretty great, but anyway. So it is a small tax effect, alright? It's not, it's not great, but yeah. And it does require 1 blue and tapping. So the main thing about tapping is that you can do it 1 time per turn. Unless you untap him some way, you're going to get 1 counterspell for 1 blue out of him. Again, tax 1, a lot of people think that's really not good. What I would look for this, the main thing I would want to do is counterspells, right? If someone's playing a counterspell, you're going to shut down their counterspell. They're going to leave 3 open instead of 2 open. So it's like you're costing them not just the 1 time, you're costing them every turn is the idea. Anyway, I just love this guy. I have 2 of him, again, from like 95 or 96. I'd have to check. But anyway, 17 cents only. For 17 cents, I think that's a crazy good ability. Alright, number 4 is Brine Seer. We actually have 2 Brine ones, so we're getting all pickled. But, joke. Okay, sorry, bad joke. Ideal in mono blue? If you have a mono blue deck, I think this is like, you have to have this. This is the most mono blue card I might have ever seen. The tax effect is unreliable. I think that's my major complaint about this guy, but anyway, let's look at him. It's 2 in a blue, so that's not cheap. And you have to tap him to reveal blue cards from your hand. And however many blue cards you reveal, that's the tax, right? So it's kind of like an X tax based on the number of blue cards you reveal. So if you've got a hand full of blue cards, where it's like 5 blue cards, a tax 5. They're very likely not going to pay it or not be able to pay it, and even if they do, that's a whole extra spell they're not casting. Like, the effect of being able to cast that spell is actually a negative. It's like a net negative rather than a benefit. So the effect it has on your opponents is pretty extreme. Anyway, 23 cents only. Number 3. All right. Hisoka Minamo Sensei. Not Minamo's. No apostrophe S, just Minamo. All right. I had to tell myself that like 10 times. Anyway, okay. Pay 2 and a blue and discard. All right. So discard, you might think, hey, that's not good. Discard. But like I said at the beginning, if you cast an actual counterspell, that's going to your graveyard. You're essentially doing the same thing. You're discarding a card, but let's look at this more. Counter target spell if it has the same converted mana cost as the discarded card. Alright, so what you want here is to have a whole bunch of different values of cards in the deck. He's a legendary creature, so he's on my list of like interesting recommendations for building decks, because yeah, a blue that has kind of like he can just keep counterspelling on his own and you don't need to put them in the deck. That actually kind of frees up your deck a lot. But anyway, the main thing about discard you need to remember is that there is madness, right? So madness cards, if you put them in, you're discarding your madness card. It often means that you're able to get either a better effect or a cheaper casting cost. So this can mean that you're discarding to counter the spell and you're going to save some mana on the spell after or get a better effect. So yeah, it can be very, very good. Anyway, 32 cents. I feel like this guy, I don't understand. I actually read this card several times because I was like, am I reading this wrong? This seems too good to be 32 cents. This feels more like a $5 card, but anyway, okay. Number 2. Brine Shaman. Here's our second briny boy. Requires 1 mana and 2 blue, as well as a sack of a creature. Not sacrificing himself. Again, sacrificing a creature. A token creature? Sure. You got a 2/2 zombie sitting around? Just sacrifice that. And you get to counter target summon spell. So again, summon spell, this is an old card. What that means is creature card. Alright, so counter a creature spell every turn, right? And once again, the main thing I want to look at here is that there's no tap symbol for that ability, right? There's no tap. So as long as you have mana and you have things to sacrifice, you can just keep countering, right? Counter, counter, counter all day. That's insane. This is a 5-cent card. This should not be a 5-cent card. Why is this a 5-cent card? It's like potentially infinite creature counters, but like 5 cents. Yeah, sure, why not? Number 1, Ghostlet Warder. Okay, the Ghostlet Warder, pay 3 and a blue. So this is the most expensive mana-wise. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 2. Again, it is a tax effect, which I think puts some people off. It is the kind of like psychology of it, though. 2 is actually a pretty decent tax, I think. It's the effect that it has on people's gameplay, like they're always being very, very careful of their mana, and mana is not something people are usually like, oh, I have too much mana. There's not a lot of decks that have that problem, so yeah. The reason why I think he's number 1 is that he has Channel. Also, Channel is not casting a spell, so it is much more difficult to counter. Again, you can discard him and pay 3, the same 3 in a blue, to counter target spell unless its controller pays 4. So once again, if you use the Channel ability, you do have to discard him, which is the downside, but that tax goes up to 4 instead of 2. That's just a counter spell. Like late game, maybe someone has 4 extra mana sitting around. A lot of the game, they're not going to have 4 extra mana, right? They've already tapped to cast the spell. 4 more? Maybe not likely. Especially if it's like their second spell or something like that. No. Come on. Anyway, 24 cents only. That's amazing. 24 cents. Just the options there, I think, are the main thing. Because having a counterspell that's a channel counterspell, that I think I've only seen that on this card. But anyway. Now the list. Cool. Vodalian Mage, 17 cents. Brian Seer, 23 cents. And Hisoka Minamo Sensei, Minamo Sensei, 32 cents. Brian Seer, 23 cents. Okay. Brian Shaman is 5 cents. Still, 5 cents. 5 cents is insane. It is Demir, maybe that's why it's cheaper, but it should not be 5 cents. That's a card where its value just does not make sense. But anyway. And Ghostlit Warder is 24 cents. Again, I put that number 1. It's a tough one versus Brian Shaman. I think Brian Shaman, just because it is 3 to activate the ability, and the requires a sacrifice is not that big a deal, but it's somewhat of a limitation. So Ghostlit Warder just gives you so many options. The options are crazy and very undervalued. But anyway, alright. Thank you very much. Please hit like and subscribe. I'm supposed to say that way early in the video, but I never do. Anyway, thank you very much and take it easy.